Welcome to the National Visitor Use Monitoring Program. You are about to participate in a very important nationwide program in which we collect extremely useful information about national forest visitors. I'm Sue Kosis, one of the program leaders. In this video, I'd like to share with you the history of the program, highlight some of the results, explain the methods used, and help you understand the important role you will be playing as an interviewer collecting data. The program was begun in the year 2000. In the first 4 years, we've collected information from visitors on every national forest and grassland in the country. In fact, over 800 interviewers have talked to over 100,000 people.
I'm conducting interviews for the forest about the recreation users, the forest...
Before I explain to you the methods that we used, I'd like to share with you some of the uses of the data. Our main purpose was to collect statistically reliable information for Congress to let them know the number of national forest visitors that we have. While we've achieved this goal and raised our credibility in the eyes of Congress, a much more important aspect of this work is the individual forest and regional information that we're providing about recreation visitors. The data you collect provides information not only on the number of national forest visitors that come to each forest, but it also describes what they do, what activities they participate in, how long they stay on the national forest, why they came, how satisfied they were with the facilities and services that we provided, and a very important piece of information is the economic value of that recreation visit to the local economy. People have enjoyed outdoor recreation on the national forests and grasslands for years. They come for all kinds of reasons: to improve their physical fitness, to enjoy the beauty of the great outdoors, to pursue favorite activities such as hunting, fishing, and downhill skiing. They come to spend time with family and friends. They come to get a sense of clarity and relaxation that enables them to go live their day-to-day lives with less stress. When forest managers understand why visitors come to the national forests and the role that recreation plays in the overall agency mission, they're able to make better management decisions. During the forest planning process, there's many resources competing for limited budgets. Fish, wildlife, range, timber, minerals, and recreation are all at the table competing for their special projects. With this information collected in the study, we now have recreation information that's reliable, defensible, and enables managers to make good decisions.
These are some of the resource improvement projects.
Once you start going out into the field to conduct your interviews, you may start wondering why you ended up here, where there's only geese to talk to, rather than over there, where all the people are. The method we use in the monitoring program is a random sample. It's similar to the types of samples used to predict who will win the next presidential election. They don't ask everybody in the country how they're going to vote. Instead, they just talk to a small number of randomly selected people.
Hi, how are you folks today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Did you enjoy your trip here?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Oh, great.
The method that we used to create our random sample was that we had each forest divide their sites and areas into one of 5 site types. On approximately 200 days on each forest, they're going to go out and conduct interviews on these sites. These sites are day-use sites, which include things like picnic areas, visitor centers, and ski areas. Overnight developed sites, such as campgrounds, cabins, and resorts. Wilderness, which is designated wilderness. General forest areas, which are those undeveloped portions of the forest without facilities in which people pursue things like hunting and fishing. And a final category that we call view corridors. View corridors are actually not on Forest Service land. They would be things like state highways and scenic routes in which people drive to view national forests, but they don't actually get onto the forest to recreate. The data collected on these 200 and some sample days will then be used to describe overall forest use and visitor characteristics. The basic procedure is to obtain a 24-hour traffic count and conduct 6 consecutive hours of interviews. The interviews are a critical part of this entire process. You may wonder why we conduct on-site interviews instead of just handing people the survey form and having them mail it back. Mail-back surveys have typically a very low response rate, nor can we control who answers the questions. And we can't ensure that they fully understand the questions asked. By conducting interviews, we're able to ensure a higher response rate from a greater variety of visitors, and we can make sure that they understand the questions asked. As an interviewer, it is absolutely necessary that you carefully follow all the techniques that we're going to teach you. If you don't, we can't trust the quality of the data collected. Because of this, it is necessary for you to understand all the techniques that we teach in the training video, the training handbook, and the field sessions that you will attend. When you're in doubt about anything at all, please call the help desk.
Hi, how are you today?
We have discovered that good interviewers share some common qualities. They really like talking to people. They're extremely safety conscious. They understand the program and believe in the usefulness of the data collected, and they don't wing it, they ask. And finally, they're not intimidated by the technology we use, such as traffic counters. Before we go into the details on the techniques and equipment that we're going to use in the program, let me emphasize the best way to become comfortable and confident as an interviewer. Practice, practice, practice.
My name is Tamara.
Practice using the interview form on at least 5 different people before you go in the field and talk to a visitor. Practice using the traffic counters in several locations before you need to set them up on your sample day. Now, let's talk about how you get ready to go into the field to conduct your interviews. The interview process has 5 distinct parts that you need to remember. The first one is in your office getting ready to go out into the field, gathering all your tools and equipment and your interview forms before you go out. The second part is arriving at your site, setting up your traffic counter, and getting ready to conduct the interviews. The third part is actually conducting your on-site interviews. The fourth part, which is very important to remember, is to check in with your supervisor at the end of the day. You will often be out in the field past the normal working hours, and they need to know that you've arrived home safely. Don't forget that. The fifth part is returning to the site the next day and reading the count on your 24-hour traffic counter. Oh, hi! It's kind of a slow day out here in the General Forest area and sort of like the middle of nowhere today. Not many interviews. But while you're here, let's talk about safety. We have interviewers out in all sorts of remote locations doing these surveys, and safety is our #1 priority. I would recommend that you watch the Missoula Tech Center safety videos that are included in your training kit. When you're working alone out in the woods, you have to have constant awareness around you. So let's review some of the things that you have to do. First of all, we did have, out of the some 25,000 interview days that occurred in the last 4 years of this project, we had a few instances where interviewers avoided trouble, and in one case, one Forest Service employee did roll his vehicle because he was driving back from the interview site after a long day and was very tired. Make sure that you're always current with your driving instruction and your license is current, and that you never drive if you're tired. You will be driving in all types of adverse weather conditions because these surveys occur during the entire year. So when you're out in the snow, make sure that you've got chains in your vehicle. And back here I have a shovel and a Pulaski in case you get stuck in the snow. And make sure you have flares in your vehicle too. Now, another really important thing is communication. Make sure you have a Forest Service radio that works, or you have a cell phone that can get out. Now, if a contractor is going out there, they may not have a Forest Service radio, they may have a cell phone, but it's still the Forest Service's responsibility to make sure that those people are safe out there. So make sure you do that. We did have one instance where one of our interviewers was out in a remote location and some really kind of creepy guys came by and they asked her, "Oh, are you out here by yourself? And how long are you going to be out here?" And she evaded their answers and said a friend, another Forest Service employee was about to come there. They drove around and they acted like they left. Well, she was sitting in her vehicle and in the rear view mirror, she saw these guys sneaking back towards her Forest Service rig through the woods. Fortunately, she had the presence of mind to just start the ignition and get out of there. And that's what we always want you to do. Make sure you're constantly aware of your surroundings, and in no case do we want an interview at the expense of your safety. Now, those were very rare instances, and in most of the time you're going to be out here waiting for a vehicle to come by, and you want to make sure that you have all your safety equipment. Make sure your vehicle is equipped with a first aid kit. Make sure you have a forest map. Visitors will oftentimes not only want to do your interview, but then they're going to want to know about all the places to go hunting, fishing, picnicking, watching flowers, and all that stuff. So make sure you have a map. Have a flashlight, because you never know when you're going to get home before dark or when a thunderstorm or something will come by and you need some light to see what you're doing. Oh, I got an umbrella. Now see, that's why it's not raining today. So if you don't want it to rain, make sure you bring an umbrella. Bring extra clothing, at least if it's winter time. I know down south you probably don't want all the clothing. Bring insect repellent and sunscreen. We do have some cases, I don't know if Forest Service employees have gotten it, but West Nile virus is a problem in some areas of the country, so wearing your insect repellent would be really helpful. Sunscreen so you don't get burnt. Let's see, a safety vest. You should be wearing your safety vest in traffic areas so that people can see you, especially if you're standing along a roadway. Safety glasses when you're putting in your traffic counters and you're using your hammer and things, rocks can go flying, so you should wear your safety glasses when you do that. And you should have your work gloves with you. And let's see what else. Oh, I'm getting to the good stuff. A good lunch. Make sure you have a good lunch. What do I have today? I've got some roasted almonds, some Girl Scout cookies, some candy and apples. Just brings enough stuff to get you through a day, because sometimes you will get kind of hungry. And make sure you bring a lot of water. It's very important not to get dehydrated. Finally, and probably most importantly, make sure you got your interviewer kit and your forms, plenty of forms. Don't get out in the field and go, "Oh boy, forgot my forms." And make yourself look available as an interviewer. It may be slow, but as soon as I hear a vehicle coming down the road, I'm going to jump up. I have my sign here so that they can see that I'm here for a reason and I really want to talk to them. So put the book down or whatever you're doing and look available. This will really encourage the people to come and talk to you. You'll be meeting all kinds of people while you're out there. Have fun and be careful. Well, here we are, finally out in the field where the rubber meets the road, and the importance of being a very well trained and practiced interviewer becomes critical. We're in a general forest area location today. First, let's review what we did to come out in the field. We gathered all our materials and supplies in the office, making sure we had plenty of survey forms and everything we need today. Next, we signed out with our boss so they know where we're going, and then we arrived at the site. Now, we actually looked at the site a few days before getting here so that we knew we had a good interview location. Let's see what makes this such a great interview location. We've got plenty of sight distance in both directions, and we have a really great wide turnout. So today we arrived at the site. We parked our vehicle and put a few cones in front of it so that visitors will know that, we're there. We took our first two signs and put them down the road. Both signs say traffic survey ahead. The first one is 750 feet from here. The second one is 500 feet away. And then the third sign is actually 250 feet from us, but we're not going to show that to the visitor yet because it says survey site, please stop. We don't want them to stop yet because we're going to set up our traffic counter. The best location for the traffic counter, and you'll be using a pneumatic counter on this type of paved road surface, is away from the survey site where traffic is still going at least 15 miles an hour. So don't put it in front of your interview location because people are slowing down and their vehicle won't register. Put it around the corner. Once you've placed your counter and watched traffic crossing it, making sure it's working, you return to your site here, flip the last sign out that says survey site, please stop, and then place yourself and be ready to conduct interviews. Now, you're very familiar with the forms right now, and let me just remind you of what you're going to be doing. Once you've filled out all your basic information about survey site, date, and location, you're going to introduce yourself to the visitors, explain the purpose of the study, and then here's the trick that you need to remember. Although you use the same form, when you're at a general forest area location, you're going to be asking visitors the questions on the right-hand side of the form on page 1, and for overnight sites, day use sites, and wilderness on the left-hand side of the form. You also need to remember to use your flashcards. Many of the questions have a series of choices, and for example, activity choice, there's 26 choices here, so hand the visitor this card to follow along with while you ask the question. It makes it much easier for them. And things like the economics question, income, and race questions all have flashcards that are number coded. For example, instead of saying that my race is white, I'll just respond from the flashcard number 1. This will retain people's privacy. Okay, you guys are ready to go. Let's talk to our visitors.
How you doing today? My name is William. I'm with the El Dorado National Forest. The Forest Service conducting interviews of visitors on the El Dorado National Forest. The information collected will help us better serve our visitors by knowing what activities they do, how long they stay, and how satisfied they are with the facilities and services provided. Your participation is voluntary and all information is confidential. Would you be willing to take a few minutes to participate in this interview?
Yes, I would.
Thank you very much. Which of you had the most recent birthday and is 16 years of age or older? Thank you. How you doing today? Good. And could I have your zip code, please?
Let's watch what might happen if an interviewer isn't fully prepared and doesn't understand the purpose of the survey when they're talking to the visitors.
Sure, what's going on here with the...
Oh, it's a survey. I'm not really sure why we're collecting information from visitors, but I do have a list of questions that I'll ask you.
Well, this interviewer made a few mistakes. Let's stop the video here and have you talk about ways that she could improve. I hope you found a few things that our interviewer could do to improve. Let me share with you a few of the things that I noticed. First, her appearance was a little bit sloppy and she wore sunglasses talking to the visitor, which makes the visitor uncomfortable. Her attitude was one of, I don't know, I don't care, I'm not sure why I'm here. And she forgot to give a good introduction about why she was doing the survey, and she also forgot to ask of the two people in the car who had the most recent birthday. That could create some bias in the data collected. Well, here we are at a trailhead to the beautiful Desolation Wilderness on the El Dorado National Forest. This is a wilderness sample day in a particularly challenging area because the wilderness boundary is actually 2 miles down this trail. So our interviewer has to remember that they have to determine that anybody exiting this trail on a wilderness sample day actually got as far as the wilderness boundary. And we will demonstrate how you do that later. Also, we were assigning AM and PM sample times for interview days. AM is from 8 to 2, PM is from 2 to 8. Now, if it's in the winter and it gets dark at 4, we allow you to adjust those times with the daylight hours. Now, the first thing we did when we arrived at this trailhead is set up our Trailmaster trail counter. So you come to your trailhead, set yourself up, making sure that you put a sign out so visitors know what you're doing here. And in this case, we're using a sign that says, "Survey site, please stop." Have your interview forms ready to go and start conducting your interviews.
My name is William with the El Dorado National Forest, and the Forest Service is conducting interviews on visitors to the El Dorado National Forest. The information collected will help us better serve your visitor needs by knowing what activities they do, how long they stay, and how satisfied they are with the facilities and services provided. Your participation is voluntary, and all information is confidential. For purposes of this survey, we want to ask you about your current National Forest visit. Would you be willing to take a few minutes to participate in this interview?
Certainly.
I only need one of you to answer, so which of you had the most recent birthday and is 16 years of age or older?
I did.
Okay. May I have your zip code, please?
95682.
And what is the prime purpose of your visit to Desolation Wilderness? Working or commuting to work, only passing through, or going somewhere else, some other reason, or recreation?
Recreation.
Okay. And point that out to me on the map, how far you went up the trail.
We're now going to show you how to conduct an interview at an overnight developed site. Overnight developed sites include campgrounds, cabins, and resorts located on Forest Service land, whether they're run by a concession or by the Forest Service. Now, this site is called a proxy site. Proxy sites are treated slightly differently than other non-proxy sites. A proxy is any count of visitors other than from the traffic counts you set up. For example, at this campground, they're collecting fee envelopes, and every visitor that comes into this campground is accounted for because they've come and they've paid. So proxy fee envelopes. Now at proxy sites, you don't have to set up a traffic counter because we're already counting visitors a different way. And also, there won't be a prearranged survey time. You will pick the 6 hours for this site in which the most visitors are exiting the campground. So those are the two things you do differently. Now, when we first arrived at this site, we had to look for a safe interview location. What we did is, we found this area just past the fee site where we can pull visitors off as they're exiting the campground out of the flow of traffic. We put up a sign here. It says traffic survey ahead. That's to warn oncoming traffic that there's something going on in front of them. We put another sign for the visitors that are exiting the campground, and that one also says traffic survey ahead. Then we put cones to mark the lane in the area that we want exiting visitors to pull over for the interview, and we put a sign here that says survey site stop ahead. Our interviewer has located herself to be very visible as these people are exiting the campground, and she's just going to pull them over in this wide area. So it's a pretty safe location for our visitors. Now, a couple of things that you're also going to have to remember. In campgrounds and other situations where perhaps you come here and there's not many people and you think, why do I have to sit here for the full 6 hours? Well, any site that is and the visitors that are using this site are game for interviews, not just campers. So, for example, let's say somebody was just driving through here and really had to go to the bathroom, and they thought, well, we're going to stop here. Or someone just decided to have a picnic in the campground. Those people are still valid interviews, although their interview will be shorter. But we really want to know all the different kinds of uses here, not just the camping. So you interview everybody as they're leaving. Also, you don't want to be walking through the campground to get your interviews, because then you're going to bias the survey. You simply want to wait at the exit point. It's a completely random sample that way of people that are exiting the campground. So that's what you have to remember when you're at overnight developed sites and when you're handling proxy sites. Let's see how we conduct an interview here.
Hi, how are you folks today?
Hi, good.
Did you have a nice time?
Yeah, it was great.
Good. Would you mind taking a few minutes and answering some questions on a survey?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, would you mind pulling over where it's a little bit safer, and then I'll go ahead and meet you over there?
Great, sounds good.
Great, thanks. This looks fine. Hi, I'm Tamara Wilton. I work with the El Dorado National Forest, and I'm conducting the survey today.
Here we are at a developed day use site. Developed day use sites include picnic areas, visitor centers, and ski areas. When we arrived at this developed day use site, which is a picnic area, it's a large parking lot. The first thing we did is we posted our sign that says traffic survey ahead, where the visitors are coming into the parking lot. We put some orange cones, some safety cones in front of our Forest Service vehicle, and then we posted our sign, survey site, please stop. That way visitors know interviews are being conducted here. Because this is a non-proxy site, we had to also install a traffic counter, which we place some distance up the road as visitors are exiting. Once you have everything in place, you simply go near your vehicle and watch visitors in the day use area, and as they are going back to their vehicle, you ask them if they would be willing to participate in an interview. Once you complete that interview, again station yourself so that you can watch people, and the next group that comes back to their vehicle is the next group that you interview. Once you've finished your 6 hours of interviews, you want to make sure you get the 6-hour traffic count on the counter. Write that down on your daily summary form. Then you're finished for the day. You will return here the next day to get the 24-hour count on that traffic counter as well. Here we are at a view corridor observation location. View corridors are non-Forest Service owned byways that travel through the forest or very near the forest. They can be things like highways, railroads. The Alaska Marine Highway qualifies. Any non-Forest Service owned travelway in which people actually go near the forest and view the scenery. Today we're on Highway 50 on the El Dorado National Forest, and there are a lot of visitors coming by, some of them to look at the scenery here on the El Dorado, and some just going to Reno or Tahoe. Managers want to know how many people travel these routes because they make management decisions about landscape management because of the sensitivity of the view shed. There are two types of view corridor observation days. It depends on what the situation is on your forest. On Highway 50, we actually have an interview location, so we're going to be doing 1 hour of observation, 2 hours of interviewing, 1 more hour of observation, and then 2 more hours of interviewing for a total of 6 hours. There are other locations or byways that don't have a good interview site. In those cases, you'll be doing 4 1-hour observation periods with a half-hour rest in between them. Right now, Tamara is going to demonstrate for us how you actually do the observation period. What she's done is she's set up her Forest Service vehicle in a safe location on the pullout. She's put a sign up that says traffic survey. That way people don't think she's just sitting around doing nothing as a Forest Service employee. And she's got 2 hand tally counters. First, however, she has filled out the front of the view corridor observation form. She's recorded region, forest number, date, site number, and the time that she began the observation period. Also, there is no traffic counter set up here. This highway is very busy, and it would not be safe for a Forest Service employee to be going out running through this heavy traffic setting up any type of traffic counter. However, we do know that the Department of Transportation keeps what we call average daily traffic counts on this highway. Therefore, this site is a proxy site. So you don't have to worry about filling out the traffic counter information on the observation form. Once Tamara has filled out the front of the observation form, she's ready to do the observation traffic count. Flip over the form and you'll notice that there are 4 traffic observation periods written there. For the first observation period, she's going to count traffic going in one direction only for 1 full hour. Now the trick is we also need to get the proportion of commercial to non-commercial traffic. She's going to use 2 hand tally counters. One of them is going to count obvious commercial traffic, and the other is going to count non-commercial traffic. Obvious commercial traffic is a log truck going by, something that says Joe's Roofing, anything that's very obviously commercial. The non-commercial stuff is your passenger vehicles and anything that's not saying something that gives you a clue that it's commercial traffic. So for that period of time, she's going to count commercial, non-commercial. Once one of those counts reaches 100, she'll record that ratio on the form. For example, she's got 100 non-commercial vehicles and 37 commercial vehicles, and that happened in 20 minutes. She records that on the form, then you don't have to worry about that ratio for the remaining 1 hour period. Just keep counting all the traffic going in one direction. We're now at our view corridor interview site location. We came here after conducting our 1 hour of observation of traffic along the highway. This is a really good interview site because there's a restroom here. Now, it doesn't have to be a Forest Service restroom, and in fact, in most cases, it'll probably be a state rest area, something like that. The reason we want the rest area is we want to get a random draw of anybody driving along this highway. What we want to know is what percent of the non-commercial traffic coming down this highway chose this route for scenery. In order to find that out, we're now going to conduct 2 hours of on-site interviews.
Some questions? Great, thank you very much. What is the primary purpose of your trip through this area today?
Recreation.
Ah, wonderful. What is the major reason you chose this route?
I'm returning from Lake Tahoe.
Okay. What is your home zip code?
59801.
How many people, including you, traveled here in the same vehicle?
3.
Okay. And how many of those people are less than 16 years old?
None.
All right.
Now that we're done doing 2 hours of interviews here, we're going to return to the place we did our traffic observation, do 1 more hour of traffic observation, counting the traffic going in the opposite direction of what we counted the first time. After we're done with that, we're going to come back here one last time for the day and spend 2 more hours conducting interviews. Then you're done with your View Corridor interview sample day. We realize that not every sample site is going to be the ideal setup situation. For example, you may have a general forest area exit road that's dirt or gravel, and it's hard to find a good pullout for the interview vehicle. Make sure you check out your survey site locations before the survey day. If you have any doubts in terms of how to set up, please feel free to call our help desk. We've covered a lot of material in this training video. It's probably a good idea for you to watch this several times to pick up the details, and also read your handbook and attend your field training sessions. The important things to remember are to practice using the techniques and equipment before your actual survey days, consider safety at all times, and most importantly, go out and have fun meeting our National Forest visitors. Right now we're going to place the traffic counter, remembering safety and the fact that you have practiced using the counter before you get into the field. Now we do provide instructions and training tools on how to use the counter, including a PowerPoint that will walk you through all the steps of actually using the counter. When you're out in the field, and especially on a busy roadway like this, selecting the correct site is really important. You don't want to put your counter up where the traffic is going under 15 miles an hour, because on a pneumatic counter it won't register. So here we're going to really want to put the counter around the curve where the traffic is going faster. But now the proper setup for the counter is that you take the box that counts the vehicles, you bring it to the other far side of the road, and you secure it to a tree, usually with a chain. Zero the counter out using your magnets, making sure you have the proper settings. Hook the rubber hose to the counter, and then bring that hose across the roadway, and then secure it on the other side, in this case with an asphalt pin, making sure it's very taut. If that tube is not taut, it will bounce every time a car goes over it, and it won't count correctly. Now sometimes you're going to be on a roadway that's gravel or dirt. In those cases, you may want to bring a rake with you and make sure that you have a really level surface without a lot of rocks under it while you place that hose. So Gary, we're in a situation here at a day-use site where the traffic is going under 15 miles an hour. And we had heard that the pneumatic hoses don't really work in that situation, but I think you have a solution. Would you like to explain it to us?
Yes, so on the slower speeds, you want to increase the sensitivity, so you want to shorten the length of the road tube. So as a result, your installation is completely opposite of your normal installation on a wider, higher speed road. Whereas from the counter to the end of the hose that crosses the, spans the length of the width of the road, you want to make that about no more than 20 to 25 feet. So what we have here is we've anchored this end here.
And we left the excess tubing on this side.
Exactly. And then you put a C-clamp on it, and you want to secure the C-clamp to make sure that no one tampers with it. You just wrap it around there and keeps it right in place here.
So the short end of the tube is going from the counter to the C-clamp.
To that point, correct.
Okay. And then you also secured it with the pins on both ends of the roadway.
Yes.
Now you'd only use this in slow speed situations, and if the traffic's over 10 miles an hour, you would do it the way we showed on the general forest area road?
That's correct.
This trail counter has two components, the transmitter and the receiver. The way you set this up is you first walk down your trail looking for a location where visitors are forced to hike single file and where there are some trees across from each other on the trail fairly perpendicular. Now you take your transmitter first and you tie it with the straps that are included around a tree about 2 to 3 feet up. Make sure that's secure, then turn on the transmitter. It's now sending a beam across the trail. Take your receiver and hook that to a tree on the other side of the trail. Turn that on. Now there's a little line that's going to let you do a line of sight back to the transmitter, and when the red light starts blinking on the receiver, you'll know the beam from the transmitter is hitting the receiver. Once you've got that beam blinking, secure the receiver. Go back over to the transmitter and move it around just a little bit so that you can make sure that you've got that beam centered. If the light is not blinking, you know that the beam is not hitting the receiver. Once you've got that secured and your red light is blinking, secure both of those, go back to the receiver, zero it out. Now you want to make sure it's working. So walk in and out of that beam along the trail about 6 times. Go back to the receiver, look at the face of it, and make sure that a number 6 is showing. If that's all well and good, just zero that out and your trail counter is now working for the 24 hours you're going to leave it there.